I'm a trans man and I got top surgery 4 years ago in 2020. I feel like a lot of people stop giving transition updates once they've been on testosterone for a while and once they've gotten top surgery a while ago. So I wanted to do a quick update to show like my progress and recovery and stuff like that. For my top surgery scars, I got top surgery in July of 2020, so it's been almost 4 years now. As you can see, this side was a lot more faded than this side, and it's because I didn't really listen to my surgeons when they told me to like not mess with the sutures. Immediately after I got top surgery, they like put a post-op binder on, and then once they took that off, they had some like bandages over my scars and over my nipples, and they specifically said don't mess with the scars, don't mess with them. You change your bandages on your nipples every single day, but don't mess with the scars. But because I have OCD and I have issues with skin picking, I didn't really listen and I kept messing with this side. So now years later, this side is like significantly less healed than this side is. I more or less have my nerves back, like I can feel everything, and you know, I really like how it looks. My scars being dark isn't really a problem for me, I don't really care. But yeah, that's my update. If you guys have any specific questions, then let me know, and have a great day.
Get ready with me to go to a Disturbed concert. I finally had an excuse to use this Ghostface palette, so I'm going in with the gray shade in the top corner of the palette and putting that all over my lids, and then using a darker gray to just wing out. And then I'm gonna blend the wings like so. And then I tried to do a wing on camera, but it really was not going well for me. And then I ran out of light. Sorry about that. And then I'm using lots of blush. And look how cute the packaging is on this lipstick. I can't get over it. And then I used a black lip liner with a nude lipstick on my dry lips. But it still came out pretty cute. And then I decided to wear like a mesh little top with velvet pants and dogs. And I'm running out of time.
People who think that wheelchairs are the easy way out are obviously have never used a wheelchair, because they're incredibly difficult to use, and you really only use one if you really need it. People who don't need a wheelchair don't fantasize about having one. One thing that happens a lot when I'm in my wheelchair is I feel like I have to look Boots the house down sleigh, because otherwise I will feel really insecure, because people always stare at me. They literally look at me like this, dead in the eye, and don't look away. If I look good, I feel less insecure, because obviously I'm like, well, maybe they're staring at me because I'm sexy. People talk to you all the time, even if you've got your headphones on, even if you look like a face like a slapped ass, people look at you and talk to you. And sometimes I really fucking can't be arsed. Like, people, I once got on a bus like a few weeks ago, and these two old ladies were sat opposite me and started talking to me about my wheelchair, because it's got like colourful spokes on it and stuff, and they were like, oh, I love your wheelchair, and I was like, oh, thank you so much. And then they were like, why are you in a wheelchair? And I was like, fucking hell. And they were like, you can tell us, we used to be nurses. And I was like, no. In terms of like accessibility, is you will plan a trip, and it will like, you spend days planning it, you know, organise care, organise people to come with you, then you'll get there and there'll be a step like this big, and the whole thing will be over. Some people can do wheelies. I personally can't. I'm a big gal, so it's quite difficult to get me up. People will stop you physically, like, to compliment you. If you grab my shoulder, my wheelchair's gonna spin back, so don't fucking do that. It's very much like tripping someone up on the leg, and someone did that the other day, and they pulled me at my shoulder and they were like, excuse me? And I was like, yes! And they're like, I just want to say I love your style. And I was like, thank you so much. You didn't have to trip me up for that, but I really appreciate it. I just wish ableism wasn't real.
Being a bisexual trans guy who's also pretty feminine is such a weird experience, because nothing ever feels straight, like no matter what it is. If I'm with a woman, I'm not gonna say we're in a lesbian relationship or whatever, because that would make me really dysphoric, and that's just me. Calling it straight doesn't feel right either. I don't know how to describe it, because the idea of straightness is like so far away from everything that I am. As a trans guy, you grow up being socialized as a woman, and you grow up being exposed to a lot of feminine things and being in women's spaces. And some trans guys are really detached from that, and I'm personally not. Like, I don't know, I was happy growing up as a girl because I've always liked feminine things, even though I'm a man now. All this to say is I just think sexuality when it comes to trans people can be very complicated sometimes, depending on the person. I don't think it's as black and white as some people try to make it, because we're not the same as cis people. And I think that's wonderful. That's not controversial. I love not being the same as cis people. I just think it's really interesting because a lot of the labels that we use to describe sexuality, it's a very clear-cut thing. It doesn't always work when it comes to trans people or gender diverse people, because we don't fit into that box in the same way that cis people do. Just some food for thought for y'all.
There's a school in Scotland where kids were having their picture taken for their school class photo, and the photographer took pictures with all of the students and then pictures without the disabled students involved, and then sent a link out to the parents with both links so they could choose to not have disabled students in their class picture. One of those girls' 9-year-old sister is a wheelchair user, and her parents got a picture with one of her kids and then another picture with the 2 of her kids. That is disgusting. It is a class picture for all of the kids that are in that class. You don't get to just erase kids because you decide they're not, like, aesthetically pleasing enough. That is ableism. That is atrocious behavior.
Asking people to not buy fakes or replicas isn't gatekeeping. Let me explain. So one of the most common discourses we're seeing at the minute is people buying from places like Shein and being in alternative fashion spaces. It's also the same with people buying like replica Lolita dresses from places like Amazon and showing it off in hauls here on TikTok. Obviously, when it comes to buying stuff from Amazon or from Shein, a lot of people do this because it's more income friendly, it's more accessible, and it's an easy way of buying things on a budget. Unfortunately, the caveat to that is that you're usually paying for unethical labor and also a lower quality item, as well as potentially stolen designs. So when people do videos like my kawaii Shein haul or kawaii try on from Shein or from Temu or from Amazon, or here's my Lolita dress collection from Amazon, you are going to get people in the comments saying, hey, why aren't you supporting the original? Or hey, why don't you buy secondhand instead of buying from these companies? And very often these discussions turn into a whole debate about classism and who shouldn't be wearing alternative fashion. Now, of course, I feel that everybody should have access to alternative fashion. I think alternative fashion for pretty much every different type of fashion subculture comes out of some form of oppression or struggle. And of course, for a lot of people, they can relate to that either financially or with their own identity. However, I also don't think it's wrong for people who are experienced in a certain fashion style to try and gently educate others on where they should and shouldn't support when it comes to the clothing for this style. If you look at Lolita or EGL fashion as an example, a lot of the clothes originally for that fashion style were handmade by the people who were wearing the clothing. But of course, Japanese apartments are particularly small and not everybody has the time, skill or finances to necessarily make their own clothing, and so independent brands who were inspired by this fashion style started to make their own designs and quickly became quite popular. And now in 2023 we have a lot of options when it comes to Lolita clothing. You have places like Lace Market where you can buy secondhand Lolita brands such as Angelic Pretty or Baby the Star Shine Bright, or you have places like Taobao which offer independent smaller brands which also do Lolita clothing. So a lot of people from this particular fashion subculture can get quite frustrated when they see people who have a lot of options out there, even budget-friendly options, who are just choosing to buy from places like Amazon or from Shein purely because it's cheap or because it's easier than doing the research themselves. Fortunately, one of the realities of certain alternative fashion styles is that they're there as a hobby as well as a way of dressing. So the argument is there that these fashions don't necessarily owe being accessible, because the reality of wearing these fashions is it's something to save up for and wear on special occasions. I think social media has given the wrong impression when it comes to a lot of alternative and Harajuku fashion styles. I think a lot of people expect that people who are wearing Decora or Lolita or all sorts of other more elaborate fashion styles are wearing it every single day as a general. But the truth is, the average alternative fashion wearer, the average EGL wearer, the average Jirai K wearer isn't actually necessarily wearing it every single day off camera. They're just wearing it to show you what they enjoy wearing. They're sharing their hobby as well as their fashion with you. And they don't have a wardrobe full of Liz Lisa or full of Baby the Star Shine Bright, because financially speaking, you have to be quite privileged to have that in your wardrobe as a day-to-day item. And so when you see it on camera, you're seeing a snapshot of somebody's wardrobe rather than the full wardrobe. And so to buy Shein or to buy bootleg or replica items thinking that you're going to build a full wardrobe just like other people is naive. And of course, when you're buying from places like Shein, you are taking away money that you could be giving to other companies that also have more size inclusive, cost inclusive items, and so they start to go out of business. And these companies will never be able to compete with Shein or offer the same pricing purely because Shein's whole structure is entirely unethical. Now, of course, if you need to use places like Primark, Shein, Amazon when it comes to your day-to-day wardrobe or your work wardrobe or stuff to wear to school or college, nobody's going to argue with you. But with certain alternative fashion styles, it's better to save up and be aware of where you're buying from than it is to try and fill up your wardrobe as fast as possible. And yes, I do recognize that saving up is a privilege that not everybody has. As and when you can, it is far better to try and save up for items, to try and buy items secondhand, or to try and even upcycle and make your own. Now, yes, elitism does exist, but honestly, it's a lot rarer than you think it is. People aren't going to judge you for buying a real item or a Taobao piece secondhand, but people will judge you if you decide to buy a replica or a bootleg of an existing item from places like Shein purely because you didn't have the money or you didn't know where else to buy them from. If you'd like to know where to buy authentic items or how to find alternative fashion cheap, I have a whole playlist here on TikTok.
Okay, most of my followers were not following me the last time I talked about this on here, so I went to speech therapy for a year as a kid for a speech impediment, and that's why it's really hard to clock it now. So when people do clock it a little bit, they never assume that that's why I might be saying a word kind of weird. I also just say a lot of words weird, to be honest. But as a kid, I couldn't really say my L's, my R's, or my S's well, or my T's a little bit, which if you think about it, that's like the entire English language. So I was very frustrated a lot that people couldn't tell what I was saying, and so my parents got me a speech therapist. I think because of speech therapy, a lot of the words people think I say kind of weird are actually because I'm over enunciating. I over enunciate to try to express the consonants clearly because I was taught to do that conscientiously. So all that being said, if you notice that I said something a little strange, I also know, you don't have to tell me. I think the worst one was this like ancient video I posted where I said the word access a lot, and I got like a million comments of people telling me that I say it weird and say it like access. Wait, that's confusing. I was trying to say access. They heard access. Access. Nope. I'm grateful to have had the resources to go to a speech therapist, but it does also reflect a lot of the barriers and prejudices neurodivergent people are facing in order to be respected societally and have access to more spaces. Access to more spaces.
Last December, I hit my 1 year out as a trans woman. I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Most days, looking in the mirror is still a struggle because I see a lot of different things that cause me dysphoria. It doesn't help that existing as a trans woman on the internet feels like a paradox. On one end of that paradox, I'm reminded that no matter how hard I try to look like a woman, I'll never be a woman. Not that there's any one way to look like a woman, because women look however they look. But on the other end, I'm reminded that no matter how hard I try, I still don't look like a woman. If I try too hard, I'm a caricature. If I don't try hard enough, I'm faking my transness. And while none of those things are true, they still serve as a reminder of the dysphoria that I feel when I look in the mirror. And while all of that admittedly does suck, there is some positive. And that's that I'm not living for the people that are making those comments. I'm living for myself. The goal isn't to look in the mirror and see somebody that they can love and be happy with. It's to look in the mirror and see somebody that I love and that I'm happy with. And that's all that matters.
Here are some differences between my mom and I. We are both autistic and have ADHD. She was diagnosed late, last year. I was diagnosed early, in preschool. She is high masking, and I am low masking. She has severe anxiety, and I have low anxiety, thanks to her. She worries what others think, but I barely notice. Some of this is how she raised me versus how the world treated neurodivergent people back then. But I am also learning that some of it is male versus female, and that it is much worse for people of color or anyone who presents differently. This is very wrong and very frustrating.
Come with me to get my fucking back tattooed. I'm going to the old shop that I used to intern at to get tattooed by my boss, Kiki. This is a tattoo that I'm getting in exchange for 2 months of work there. The shop looks so good. All the art looks so beautiful on the wall. There's Kiki working on my drawing. And we take a look at the stencil, make sure that it's in the right spot. I'm super excited about it. She peels it up. Oh, it's these fighting stallions based on this sculpture in South Carolina, I think. I just love the vibe, and I love the way that she draws horses, so I thought it was perfect. And I knew for a while that I wanted my back tattoo to be something very Western. So this is in 10 times speed of her really blasting my back. Here's what it looks like with the outline. It's looking so good so far. And of course we're doing full color because it's me. So she's got everything set up. Here's me attempting to show you guys like what's going on through the mirror, but I ended up just having to like set it down. Pain-wise, this really wasn't that bad at all. Like, the bony parts of the body are so much easier to get tattooed on than, like, the fleshy bits. This really felt like a bone massage. And there she is, all finished. I am so incredibly happy with the way that this turned out. Here's me kicking my little feet while I wait for pictures. She's wiping me off, and then we get a nice video of this tattoo. And I get the Sanoderm put on, and my body does not like Sanoderm at all, but you'll see why. The tattoo took about 2 hours, actually almost exactly 2 hours. We started at 2 and then we're finished before 4. I love their pink bathroom. It's so cute. Trigger warning for blood in just a second because my Sanoderm leaked. 3, 2, 1, now. So, yeah, that's gross and disgusting. But here I am all clean, easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. To be transparent, this was $800 worth of tattoo credit plus an extra 100 at the end. But
so I'm transgender, and my grandma's book club recently read a book about a trans girl, and my grandma gave me the book, and I was like, oh, I really liked it, Grandma. And then she was like, Sasha, when we have book club next month, I want you to FaceTime in and answer people's questions and talk about the transgender experience. That's scary, because it's a group of people who grew up in like the 30s and 40s, and I wouldn't even blame them for like not understanding trans people whatsoever. But you know me. I go, 100% Grandma, I'm there, FaceTime me in. So I FaceTimed in to my grandma's book club, and I was nervous. I was like, these are seniors. Like, I don't know how they're going to react to a trans person talking about being trans. Let me tell you, these lovely elderly people genuinely wanted to understand things. These are people who have probably never knowingly interacted with a trans person in their life, and they're literally just like, what does that feel like? How do you know that you're transgender? What's the difference between someone being homosexual and someone being transgender? I'm like, I got those answers like easy peasy. And I opened up the floor with my grandma's book club. And like, that is so hope core because like we assume older people are anti-trans. In reality, a lot of people just don't understand it and like want questions answered and like maybe don't know how to use Google. Like genuinely don't know how to use Google. If you're trans and you feel like the world is against you, the fact that I can FaceTime into my grandma's book club of people with all different political affiliations and like whatever, they just want to understand trans people, that's hope.
I saw a woman on here say that she'll never enable her autistic son if he engages in harmful behaviour that could easily be discouraged through boundaries and reinforcement. And it reminded me of the one and only time I've almost got into a physical fight with a stranger. So I'm at Lust with my boyfriend and we're feeding oats to the ducks in the water, and there's a mother and son, son's maybe about 11, standing 10 metres away from us. They also have a Morrison's bag that's filled with what I thought were oats to begin with. So the boy is like aggressively throwing handfuls of the oats at the ducks, right? Like he's throwing it at them instead of to them. And I'm like, well, he's a bit enthusiastic, but he's not going to hurt them, right? Until I heard the mysterious projectiles hit the water, and then I'm like, hang on, that doesn't sound like oats, that sounds like pebbles. So I kind of watched them a wee bit just to see what's happening. They're 5 metres away from us now, they've moved a bit closer, and I confirmed that, yeah, they are carrying a bag of small stones. So I think, oh, he must like the way it sounds when the stones hit the water, right? So I'll help him by moving the ducks out the way. So me and my boyfriend walk further down the beach, and obviously the ducks come with us. But then the mother and son also follow us down the beach. So I was getting a wee bit concerned, but I wasn't going to say anything until I was absolutely sure of what I was seeing. So the routine of us moving the ducks out of his path only for them to follow us and continue to aim specifically at the ducks happened like 2 more times. So at that point, I'm pretty damn sure of what I'm seeing. It wasn't coincidence, he was following the ducks and aiming at them on purpose. They wanted to hit the ducks with the stones. I was getting so wound up the more I watched this because the mum was full on encouraging this. Like, she had her hand underneath the bag so that he could reach in and get better handfuls of rocks to volley full force at these birds. Eventually it just came out. Like, I turned to her and inquisitively said in this exact tone, sorry, is that rocks you're throwing at the ducks? I phrased it like a question and didn't raise my voice at all because I wanted to see how she'd react, and her reaction absolutely confirmed that she knew what they were doing was fucked up. She was kind of caught off guard and like stunned at first, so she went, yes, what? And when I replied, could you not aim for them. I don't think that's very nice. She went nuts. Like, you'd think I'd walked up to this family in the middle of a barbecue and done a fat shit in their hot dog buns, the way this woman absolutely screamed at me. I deliberately barely moved. I just sort of, as she stormed towards me, I just sort of half turned towards her as she approached, shouting all manner of things like, how dare I, what business is it of mine, what she does, etc. And I just kept kind of calmly replying to her with phrases like, well, you could just aim away from them, and I just don't think you should hurt animals, it's not very nice. The whole time, never raising my voice and just calmly tossing oats to the ducks the entire time. I wanted to be very careful not going to her level of rage. So when she didn't get a rage-filled reaction out of me, she suddenly screams, my son is autistic! And I don't think she expected me to just immediately go, well, that's not an excuse to hurt animals, you should probably just tell him not to do that. She went fucking nuclear! Keep in mind that since this woman stormed towards me, I've barely moved, I've never raised my voice, and I've just continued calmly tossing oats to the ducks the entire time. I'm acting like we're having very different conversations because I want it to sink in for her how insane she's acting by comparison. Because by this point there's witnesses, right? There's other couples and families dotted around that have looked over because she shrieked at me like I've spat in her face and cursed her bloodline. At this point, she calls me a little bitch and grabs my forearm. That's right, my lack of aggression caused her so much frustration that she physically assaulted me. Starting to get a clearer picture of where the wee man gets this behaviour, and it's not the fucking autism. And this prompts a bit of a change in tone. I kind of rip my arm out of her grip, and then me and my boyfriend both simultaneously say in our best, let the Karen know you're finished indulging her voice, do not dare fucking touch me. Which seems to like flabbergast her more for some reason, as if she didn't just call me a bitch and grab me. So grabbing a stranger, perfectly fine, but the stranger telling you fucking not to, plain bamboozling madness. At this point the husband comes over and he seems kind of resigned and accepting of what's happening, as if he's seen something like this go down before. So at this point she starts howling that she's going to phone the police, and I answer too quickly and calmly for her liking, oh please do, I'm sure they would love to hear about you pelting ducks with rocks and then physically assaulting a stranger who asked you not to. So now tears of frustration and embarrassment well up in her eyes, and I'm thinking, oh no you don't. I'm the final boss when it comes to stubborn white women, and I've seen one too many of you people phone the police on black families using public swimming pools to be affected by the sudden tears I'm the victim here act. But then the husband just grabs her by the forearms and like leads her away back towards the car park, and their son just kind of toddles along behind them. And that was that. The police never did show up. Funny that. I wonder why. Now, I got the impression this woman is absolutely the type to tell her circle her own version of this about how some random girl just bullies autistic children. So if someone in your life told you a similar but different sounding story about 9 years ago, please pass on the following information to her. Something I didn't know at the time of our charming little lochside chat, and that I would like you to know now, is that medical professionals have since enlightened me to the possibility that I have autism. Uno reverse, Karen! Diagnosis pending. But on top of that satisfying little Uno reverse, I would just like to highlight how disgusting it is to insinuate that autism makes you want to hurt animals. Or that if someone who's neurodivergent does want to do harmful or antisocial things, we should just let them or actively encourage them just because they're neurodivergent. That is not how society works, nor should it be. But yeah, I still think about you, Karen. I hope the divorce went well and that your husband's living somewhere safe with someone a lot more sane.
Today, folks, I'm going to be showing how to use stencils to make patches. First thing to do is take your stencil and place it down onto some denim or canvas fabric. Then take your speedball screen printing ink and dab it onto the stencil. As you can see here, I'm dabbing my first coat of paint on very lightly to my stencil. After you put on your first coat of paint, put on the second coat of paint a bit harder. You should wait 5 minutes between each coat, and if you want to put on a third coat of paint, that would be good too. As you can see here with the first coat, it's still a bit spotty, but on my second coat, it's going to look a lot better. Now after you've applied your final coat of paint, I want you to hit that with a heat gun for about 10 minutes. First I'm going to remove the stencil, and then I'm going to hit it with the heat gun. I just use a blow dryer, gets the job done just fine, but there's plenty of other ways to melt screen printing ink on the fabric, so look it up. And this is the final result. Tell me what you think, and good luck with your team.
If you're a trans, masc, androgynous, non-binary person and you have hip dysphoria or hip dysmorphia, or I want to give you some advice, I guess, if you want it. Here. So some brands you want to look for, or at least what I look for, are double knee Carhartt, double knee Dickies, regular Wranglers, especially ones with tags on them, not screen printed labels on the fabric itself. You want the actual tags. They're more durable, they're heavier fabric, they're more like vintage. By vintage, I mean like they've lasted this long, they'll keep lasting for you. Structure is your best friend. The more structured a pant is, the more it's gonna give you a square shape, and that's gonna kind of contradict your curvy hips. I have curvy hips, and when I was presenting as femme and high femme, that was a great time, and now I'm not, and now I'm sad. We can work with it with structure and texture and secondhand shopping, especially. That's just my recommendations and what worked for me. Of course, there's always going to be clothing that fits you perfectly, and you know it the second you put it on. And listen to that feeling. That's euphoria. That is exactly what you deserve. That's exactly what's right for you. Yeah, I don't know if this helps, but I hope it makes things a little bit easier in what to look for, and maybe it might be what you're looking for. Yeah.
This is what having chronic illness looks like. Hi, I'm here to address a widespread and pretty disruptive health issue. Okay, what are your symptoms? Well, I have a lot of fatigue, joint pain, brain fog, neuropathy, migraines, gastrointestinal issues. Whoa. What is this, the end of a Cialis ad? Okay, well, as genuinely funny as that actually was, I do have a lot of these issues going on in tandem, and I'd really like to get to the bottom of them. Oh, no. We don't get to the bottom here. You're going to need all different doctors for each individual symptom. So that was migraines, so we'll get you a referral for neurology, rheumatology for the joint pain. Wait. No. I've been living with these a really long time. I've already seen all of these doctors. Can we just zoom out and like look at the bigger picture here and figure out what's really going on? Oh, no, we don't do that. I'm sorry, how does it make sense to just throw things at each individual symptom rather than taking the whole thing into account and trying to find the root cause? Look, if you really want to approach it that way, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but you do you. You could try one of those functional medicine doctors who believe that whole, your joints and your nerves and your head and your stomach are all connected in the same body thing. Okay, do they take my insurance? No, you're gonna need a couple $1,000s just to talk to them one time. Okay, I guess I'll take those referrals and just keep doing this over and over again then. Great, I'll see you in 6 months for round 2.
An aesthetic is what happens when capitalism gets to a subculture. Just take goth or punk, for example. Prolific subcultures with a deep, rich history. Countercultural movements that are about DIY and thrifting and being anti-capitalist, anti-consumerism. It wasn't enough to just dress punk or goth, you had to be punk or goth. You had to listen to the music, participate in community, and actually believe in the ideology. And then fast fashion got their hands on punk and goth. And you have companies like Shein that are antithetical to, the arch nemesis of ideologies like punk and goth, selling goth clothes or punk clothes. And then you have people who will say, but Shein is the only place where I can find punk clothes. So far removed from what the subculture actually means, because they see it as an aesthetic. Aesthetics simply exist to sell you things. Aesthetics strip subcultures down into their shallowest, most basic elements, and they repackage them and they sell them to you as if that is the only way you could ever access the subculture. It makes it so much easier to sell you certain trendy things. Okay, if you look up fairy core cardigan, you're going to get very specific kinds of cardigan. Cardigans that are sheer with ruffles in jewel tones or pastel colors. And it's a lot easier to sell people a fairy core cardigan instead of saying, this is a jewel tone, emerald, crochet ruffled cardigan. That's a lot of words. Combine this with the fact that now aesthetics aren't just ways that you dress, they are ways you decorate your home or ways that you live your life, things you eat and drink, and then you have fast fashion, not just selling you a garment,
They're selling you a lifestyle. This is how you get Shein models in coquette outfits modeled in coquette rooms. If you buy this coquette skirt, then you'll be the coquette girly of your dreams. You'll finally be your fully realized ideal self, but when you buy it, you're not your ideal self. The most fun you had with that item was right before you bought it. You're just the same you that you were before, but now you have another skirt in your closet that you were convinced that you needed. That's marketing, and that's what an aesthetic is.
Here's another thing that I just don't understand what some people say, and it's mostly adults that say this thing. So I'll be having like a normal conversation with adults. Yeah, I'm an adult myself, by the way, but I mean adult like over 40 or something. Yep, so a normal conversation, and then the topic will change onto some people being autistic or ADHD. And I don't know what they're going to say about this topic, because so many people have different thoughts and views on this, so it's kind of interesting to see what they're going to say. And then the adult over 40 will say, everyone wants to be autistic or ADHD these days, or everyone has a diagnosis for something these days. Okay, I think when people say this, it really shows how they are not educated in this area and about this topic. And to me, I do take it personally when adults say this. I won't say anything, I'll stay quiet. I'll just sit and I'll just watch. I'll be like, okay, I'll just be listening. But unless they ask, like, what are my thoughts? I'll tell you straight, like, clear as day, I'll tell you straight. Because if we look back to history, okay, like many years ago, there were so many people who were autistic or ADHD. But they weren't in public. They were hidden in mental health hospitals or places, institutes, whatever. But they were hidden away because people thought that it's a disorder that people don't need to see in public. It's embarrassing. They're not normal people. They need to be hidden away. That's how it was back then. So it's not that there weren't any autistic people or ADHD people. It was, we were hidden away. And people who say this, like, you really don't understand like how a diagnosis can help a person. I didn't realise I was autistic. I knew that there was something different, and I was questioning myself every single day from when I was a child. When I was younger, years ago, starting in school, I was questioning myself. Why am I different to all the other children and students? Why am I different? When I finally received my diagnosis, it's like my brain just went quiet. It's like everything just stopped in that moment. It explained everything. I didn't need to keep questioning myself because now I know who I am. I'm not weird. I'm not stupid. Like, my brain just works in a different way, and that's fine. But we don't need to be hidden away, and that's how it was before. And I just think, like, think before you speak. Because also, like, the other person who you're talking to, you don't know about them personally sometimes. You don't know. Like, a lot of people say it to me and they don't realise that I'm autistic, and I'm like, in my heart, it really hurts when people say that. Like, it's mainly adults again. And I think some people don't realise how a diagnosis can save someone. Now, my autism diagnosis saved me. I'm telling you, my mental health was going downhill before, and now it's improved because I know who I am. Finally, I know. And I should have had this diagnosis years ago. But with girls, it's not that easy to pick up. Boys, it's easier. But with girls, we'll receive our diagnosis way later on in the future. It happens to a lot of us. So for you to say everyone is autistic or ADHD these days, think before you speak and actually do some research and educate yourself about it.
What I will continue to find really upsetting is that I can never use face masks or anything like that because my skin just doesn't like it. So this is the shower gel that I use. It's 0% sensitive for delicate skin. I think it might be for babies, like babies that have just been born. I'm obviously not a baby that's just been born, but for some reason my skin thinks I am. I have psoriasis, right, on my chest, and this stuff seems to help me. It makes it clear up. So it's beautiful stuff, really. The thing is though, it never stops me from like trying things out. So I put these like strips under my eyes the other day, and honestly, my skin was sizzling. And I said to Isaac, I was like, is my skin meant to feel like this? Is it meant to be sizzling and like painful to touch? And then he was like, no, take it off. So then I gave them away to my friend and he loved them. But I just want to use face masks. I want to do fun face masks, but I can't. I will join in, but then my face will look all funky.
I have noticed that when you talk to a lot of non-disabled people about inaccessibility, they don't register the feelings that come along with inaccessibility, even when you specifically talk about those feelings. You'll be talking about like drop curbs, right? And you'll say it's really frustrating when there's no drop curb or somebody's parked over a drop curb because then me and my wheelchair can't get off the pavement. And they say, oh, well, you can just go a different way around. It like doesn't add that much time to your journey. They completely brush over the feelings that inaccessibility causes and the inconvenience that it causes, and kind of make out like it's no big deal. When everyone else can just step off a curb and you can't because the accessibility was done wrong or because somebody's parked in the way. When it happens on a regular basis and sometimes multiple times in one outing, it feels like a massive deal, especially when so much inaccessibility involves you being forgotten about, whether they forgot to put a drop curb in, whether they've left you on the friggin' train and you can't get off, whether there's no lift and you can't get to where you need to go. It all feels like you've just been forgotten about. It feels like people aren't actually listening to us when they respond with something that minimizes the experiences that we face as disabled people on a regular basis. Especially when it really wouldn't take that much to just listen to what we have to say and to acknowledge how frustrating these problems must be for us.
I finally understand why I transitioned. The tricky thing about dysphoria is that it's hard to recognize it for what it is because you're so used to it always being there. And when you're used to dissociating to deal with all your problems, then it becomes really hard to tell when you're feeling it at all. To me, it's like piloting my body rather than being in it, and hating myself for no reason. That was my everyday. I got used to living like that. And as it turns out, I'm very good at rationalizing, so I just thought it was entirely logical to hate myself. For most of my life, I didn't have friends to tell me I had worth. I had family to tell me that, but they were biased. What transitioning does is make me feel more at home in my own body so that that vague sense of self-loathing is gone. Or at least it will be gone once I finish unpacking all the rationalizing I did. Unfortunately, that also means that I now actually care about my own happiness. And because I'm now concerned for my own happiness and well-being, I have to unpack a whole pile of other shit. Also, there are plenty of stories about the justified suffering of an unlikable main character. If you were to like the main character, that story would get less funny and more sad. It gets even less fun when you realize you're the main character. Dissociation made it feel like I was watching someone else live my life. So basically, I transitioned in order to make the main character in my life more relatable and likable. And now I just have to worry about the plot.
Why do I use a wheelchair if I can walk? I have a ton of conditions, all of which cause chronic pain. Sometimes I use a crutch, my wheelchair, or neither. Mobility aids do exactly what their name implies. Aid my mobility.
Oh yeah, this is me 1 month on T.
And now it has been a year. Whoa. Okay. I didn't really have anything necessarily planned to talk about, but I do want to just say that one, I'm very happy. Two, in this past year, I have utilized my physical body in ways that I never thought imaginable for myself. And I am just very grateful to have access to medication that lets me live my life in a more full, rounded way, basically. 2 months ago, I started my journey with aerial, and that's been really fun. I've been really liking trapeze, and honestly, trapeze has been a big one. Lyra is great. Straight silks is just difficult. There's been a lot of life changes. But I feel most importantly to say that I wish that every person who wanted access to HRT had access to HRT, and it is very important that we keep and fight for that to be accessible. Being on T has just really expanded the ways that I think about all things around me. But That's all. That's it.